NFL preseason week 2 is officially in the books. Let's talk about it. Similar to last week, we're going to spend a little bit more time at the beginning of this video deep diving into a couple of, games, storylines, etc. that I want to get into, and then we're going to kind of just rapid fire. But I have to start with the Minnesota Vikings. We have to start with one JJ McCarthy, as not only do I believe JJ McCarthy has officially played himself out of the backup quarterback role in Minnesota, I think it's possible he's played himself off the team. JJ McCarthy was really bad in this preseason week 2 game, and there was a lot of talk about a quarterback competition between JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray for most of this offseason. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings ended that very early into this preseason, announcing Kyler was going to be the guy before week 1 of the preseason. Like, the competition just died, and it's really become evident and easy to see why. JJ McCarthy just doesn't have it, dude. And on one hand, you feel bad for the guy because it's like you were drafted really young, top 10 pick. You had to take over for Sam Darnold, who just won 14 games and threw for 4,000 yards. But at the end of the day, this Vikings roster is built to win now. You have a lot of really good players on that offense, like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, who probably is only there for a limited time. Veterans like TJ Hawkinson, Jawan Jennings, and Aaron Jones. And it's like a lot of these guys aren't on the timeline of developing a JJ McCarthy. And you talk about the Brian Flores defense that's loaded and ready to go year after year. Minnesota is a roster built to go on a run. They are one of few teams in the NFL where when you legit say they're a quarterback away, it's the God's honest truth. We saw them have a quarterback in Sam Darnold. We saw them win 14 games. They pivot to JJ McCarthy because of the investment in him. Terrible idea, sure. But here we are, and JJ McCarthy, dare I say, needs to be traded off of this team because a fresh start might be the only shot this guy has. But at the end of the day, I don't even know what a fresh start would do for him because it's a loaded quarterback class coming up. There's not really a lot of quarterback needy teams in terms of desperate enough for JJ McCarthy. We're going to talk about the Browns in a little bit, but I don't even think JJ McCarthy would win that job. Shedeur looked better than him this past week. JJ McCarthy is unimpressive. There's a lot of things off about JJ's game. I would say the number one thing that I noticed is he just has no touch on the football whatsoever. It feels like every throw that he makes is an MLB pitcher loading up a fastball. And while, yes, there's the old adage of 2 hands on the ball, you got to catch it. As a quarterback, you have to put your receiver in the best spot to be able to catch the football. And on a 5-yard out route wide open, you don't need to put a bunch of zip on that. You give a little touch on that ball, and you come down with it. And we'll go to the stats here. JJ McCarthy, 5 for 10, 81 yards, a 77.5 passer rating. I don't think it tells the full story. I don't. I think that this almost makes it look better than he is. Although, I'll say this, a 50% completion percentage. But look at Carson Wentz, who I think has surpassed JJ McCarthy as the backup. And truth be told, they could say whatever they want. But if it came down to it and the Vikings had a 6-2 record and Kyler Murray sprained his ankle, they're going to Wentz. They're going to Wentz because he gives them a better opportunity to win football games. That's the God's honest truth. Last year, when it was these 3 guys as the quarterback room, I mean, insert dragon meme with the tongues out because that's what it was. But when it was these 3 guys, Wentz was clearly the better guy. 9 for 11, 92 passing yards, a 101.5 passer rating. Again, it's preseason football, it's backups, and it was even further down the depth chart when Wentz came in. But we also have a full track record of seeing these guys play. I want to pivot here to a Twitter clip quick to just kind of show you guys what I'm talking about when it comes to JJ McCarthy's throwing. So I got it pulled up here now. This was a red zone drive. JJ McCarthy is going to try and hit an out route here on, I believe it was 4th down. He had an opportunity earlier on this drive in the back of the end zone to hit a receiver as well. And he basically makes the same exact mistake and the same exact throw twice here. So we're just going to hit play. over here. McCarthy, I mean, look at the zip on that. There's just zero touch whatsoever on this football. And so right here, boom, perfect spot to freeze frame it. McCarthy, oh, sees. I mean, this is wide. Obviously, it's a pick play. Doesn't get called. Doesn't get called all the time. This guy is wide open. All you have to do is just loft this ball over here. Just a little flick. And I'm not even kidding you. This is a 10-yard out route throw. If you have any athletic bone in your body, you could make this throw. And you can't say that often about this NFL stuff. You can't often say, I could do a better job. Regular Joe Schmo. We could do better jobs on this designed concept. Clean pocket, guys wide open. This is a throw where an average Joe who's picked up a football before could be better than J.J. McCarthy. And tons of zip on it. For one, it's not even accurate. It goes over the receiver's head. You see it here. This is not catchable. But look at how much space he has. The ball should never be that out of reach, and it should never be going by that fast. This is the easiest automatic touchdown that could exist in this spot, and JJ can't hit this throw. And the fact that McCarthy can't hit a throw like that is what has me worried that he's clearly just a bust of a pick at this point in time. Maybe he'll have a Geno Smith, Sam Darnold resurrection, a couple years down the line, and we'll be like, oh my God, JJ McCarthy figured it out. But I damn sure think this guy's closer to being Josh Rosen, because I honestly think if the quarterback class in 2027 is what we expect it to be, JJ McCarthy could be out the league. That's where I'm at with him. That's where I'm at with JJ McCarthy. He might be out of the league at this point in time, because you cannot play that porous, and you cannot have the ability to not make that throw if you're McCarthy. Anthony Richardson has the same problem, but the Colts and other teams are going to be willing to invest in him because of the athletic traits. JJ McCarthy doesn't have those. At the end of the day, he's the kind of guy who needs to be accurate with the football. He needs to have touch on the ball. And quite frankly, he just doesn't have that. From the rest of this game, Ty Felton did make a sweet catch. Apparently, he's been having a good camp. He had a 50-yard catch on a pass from McCarthy that, I don't want to kill McCarthy too much because he did navigate the pocket well on that play, but Ty Felton had to come back and kind of moss a DB for that ball. So I'm not going to sit here and give McCarthy credit for that throw either. Felton, he was solid. Other than that, the Ravens didn't really play a lot of starters. Tyler Huntley didn't get a lot of time. He's just kind of the clear-cut backup for that team. I think Carson Wentz is the clear-cut backup for Minnesota. We did see some nice play from some of the young guys on the Minnesota defense. Big Citrus, I thought, had some solid play. Caleb Banks got a tackle overall. So overall, Galladay as well, another rookie that they drafted with 5 tackles. So, one of the more interesting preseason games from week 2, I would say. The next game that I kind of want to talk in depth about is this Dallas Cowboys game. They had this as a Saturday night, a late game. Cowboys beat the Cardinals 34-13. And I want to focus on Joe Milton, man, because I think Joe Milton in this game very well perhaps established himself as an NFL starter one day again. I think Joe Milton's the kind of guy who could get an opportunity. I think that honestly teams could be giving the Cowboys a call for him at some point this season, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys dealt him. Sam Howell, obviously the stats aren't amazing in this game, but he's a solid enough backup for Dak Prescott that if there is a team calling for Joe Milton, offering you some decent draft compensation, it might not be a bad idea if you are Dallas to accept that trade, just because they have $60 million a year invested in Dak. It's nothing against Milton, but Milton obviously came into the league, very strong athletic profile, good speed, maybe one of the best arms in NFL history in terms of just pure throw power already. And then obviously he's got the size to his game, but he just was not refined as a quarterback. And it seems like after a couple years in the NFL, Milton has really figured some things out. 9 for 13 in this game, 179 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, a 151.4 passer rating. Like, Joe Milton played a perfect game of football in this preseason game. Obviously the pass that he had to Mingo for the 53-yard touchdown was really nice. I thought the play that he had to Camden Brown, the 70-yard gain, that, he got tackled at the 1. Even though the ball spent less time in the air, I thought was a more impressive play from Milton. His ability to navigate the pocket, scramble, but keep his eyes downfield, get that throw off kind of awkwardly and still accurately to Camden Brown. Like, those are the things you're looking for when you're looking for a quarterback to develop. And I think Joe Milton has shown a lot of development in this preseason, and I think he looks like a legit guy. And this could be a situation where Dallas is like, no, we want to keep him. Backup quarterback is more important now than ever. You've seen what Mac Jones did for the 49ers last year when Purdy was down for an extended period of time. Mac Jones kept them afloat. Hell, Mac Jones beat the Rams on Thursday Night Football. So maybe that's how Dallas views Joe Milton, and they're more likely to get rid of Sam Howell. But I really do think that some of these teams that are really bad at quarterback. I mean, I think Arizona, Joe Milton could be exciting for them, especially if Brissett went down. Now they have Carson Beck and they do have Minshew, so maybe they wouldn't be so invested in making a move for a Milton. Cleveland's obviously that got their quarterback competition, which we're probably going to hear. I'm recording this 9 a.m. right now. Haven't heard the results of that yet, but we will likely in the future. The Jets, if Geno Smith were to go down, obviously they have Klubnik, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. He hasn't been too impressive. I think there's a spot somewhere where Milton could eventually get an opportunity to be a starter again in this league. And obviously, again, it's against backup play. That's kind of just what the preseason is. We know that caveat going in, but I thought Milton looked really good. In other news for the Cowboys, Jadon Blue, he had a solid game, 15 for 75, 5 yards a carry. Camden Brown continues to have an interesting preseason. They kind of have their receiving core set in Dallas with Lamb, Pickens, and Flournoy, but Camden Brown could be the next man up, especially with Tolbert now in Miami. For the Cardinals, they didn't really play anybody of note. You have Minshew, who is the quarterback 3 there, I think, when everybody is healthy, ready to go. Nothing else too crazy. For Dallas, I did want to mention that Chavon Rebel, he did have an interception in the game, and he's the guy who I think that Dallas could be looking at to take a step this upcoming season. And in their cornerback room, in their DB room, they could use guys that are taking a step forward if they're going to be a high-end defense in 2026 and be a potential Super Bowl caliber defense. So that was also good to see if you're a Cowboys fan. The last game here that I really want to dive into in terms of talking about some real stuff is the Browns-Bills game. The Bills won 31-7, but at the end of the day, there is one quarterback competition that everybody has their eyes on. It is the Cleveland Browns, Shedeur Sanders versus Deshaun Watson. And I thought this game, to me, solidified that Shedeur should have been the starter. At this point, he should be viewed as the quarterback 1 for this football team, both by play on the field and also commentary off the field. You look at what these guys did on the field. Shedeur got the whole first half this time. Watson got the third quarter. Shedeur, 9 for 11, 74 yards, a touchdown and interception. The interception wasn't a perfect ball from Shedeur, but the receiver quite literally had it in his chest and popped it up. Like, again, it was a little bit behind for sure. I'm not claiming it was a perfect throw. It's just not a pass that should have been intercepted. If the receiver's able to bring it to his chest, that should at worst go to the ground. Popped up in the air, kind of unfortunate. Still an 87.1 passer rating. I thought Shedeur looked calm in the pocket. He had a lot of clean pockets, so like the Browns offensive line certainly did him a lot of favors, but he was able to get through his progressions. He scrambled a little bit when needed, and I thought that he had some real touch on the football when needed and some real zip. Unlike J.J. McCarthy, this guy was able to control the speed of the football when it was needed. Watson came in 5 for 12, 36 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 14.6 passer rating. Just a really bad play from Watson. Again, he was out there with the threes, so in a certain sense, it's not like he was playing with Concepcion and Fannin and Judkins, etc., but it was also still really bad play from Deshaun Watson. There was a screen pass that he just couldn't even make it back to the line of scrimmage on a throw. And then you get to the post-game commentary, and we could relitigate the Watson stuff time and time again. Obviously, settled, free man. It is what it is. But he talks about how the fans boo him and they cheered when he tore his Achilles. And Again, I just think if you're the Cleveland Browns and your ownership, you're the head coach of this team, you're the GM, whoever is making decisions, you think Shedeur has at least looked on the same level as Watson. Obviously, we haven't seen the training camp and the practices and stuff. We're not there for all of that, but the game tape that we've seen, I think Shedeur has looked better, but I think most people would consensusly agree Shedeur has at least looked on playing field with Deshaun Watson. You think Shedeur's the younger guy who, if we're talking about potential at this point in their NFL careers, Shedeur obviously has more. At Colorado behind a bad offensive line, not an offensive-minded team, this guy was accurate, showed a good deep ball, and just had some good games towards the end of last year. Why not give him the full runway and just see if he could develop this season? I've talked about this here. I've talked about it on X with various people. It's like, what's the worst that happens? You suck? It's a loaded quarterback class. Why not give Shedeur the full runway from just a pure, he's the young guy who's talented perspective? If it works out, great. We have a franchise quarterback. If it doesn't work out, then, oh well. We're going to finish with a top 10 pick, and we're going to get to draft a guy. So to me, it's like a win-win for Cleveland just figuring out what they have in Shedeur. But also, do you really want to start a quarterback if you're the Browns that your fans hate for a very limited upside? Like, what's the real upside in Deshaun Watson in 2026? Maybe you win like 7 games? I just don't see the upside being any higher than Shedeur. To me, Shedeur should be the clear starter for this team, both play, but also just from a logistical sense moving forward. But we talked about that kind of at extent of last week. I just kind of wanted to get it off there again. Not a lot of big-time players played in this game. The running game for Buffalo looked good again. Kyle Allen, he looked actually really sharp. You got to feel like the Bills got a solid backup if Josh were to ever go down. Ray Davis seemed to be the clear number 2 back for my fantasy heads out there. But overall, this game was mainly about Shedeur and Deshaun Watson, and I think that we found our answer. All right, now we're going to go back to the start of the week and kind of just rapid fire through these games. Raiders, Texans. Raiders win 22-20. Mendoza probably didn't look the sharpest in this game. I mean, he definitely didn't look the sharpest in this game. I would say that coming out of this game, I feel pretty confident that Kirk Cousins is going to be the week 1 starter for the Raiders, and I never thought that that was a bad thing. I thought Mendoza sitting and learning a little bit while the offensive line develops and without a bunch of wide receivers there was probably best for his progression overall. The Texans did play their starting offense a little bit for a drive. We didn't see Nico Collins. We didn't see David Montgomery, but we saw Stroud behind that offensive line with some of the other weapons out there. Xavier Hutchinson didn't look that good. That's why the team went out there and signed Sterling Shepard and Zay Jones, so we'll see what's going on there. Woody Marks actually looked really great, though. He averaged 9.3 yards a carry, and he had that touchdown. So I thought also Stroud looked pretty good behind that offensive line. Looked comfortable, looked like he was good navigating. Mike Washington has another impressive game. I wouldn't be shocked if him and Ashton Genty, who now has a sprained ankle, were kind of more of a 1-2 combo this year than people thought. I also think Marlon Klein is a name that I'm watching on the Houston Texans as a guy to potentially take over for Dalton Schultz, especially because he's probably a better blocker. And then Woodos had the pick 6 off of Mendoza, so something cool to note there. 49ers and Chargers. Mac Jones, obviously, he was solid when he played there. Brock Purdy got a little bit of action as well. Stribling, man. Stribling has been the story of 49ers preseason football. 4 for 46 again in this one. He's been just absolutely outstanding for them. Sincere McCormick as well, 8.8 yards a carry. It's possible he could be the backup running back to McCaffrey that nobody's talking about. Trey Lance looked decent again, man. Trey Lance, I think he's just going to be a quality backup going forward. I don't, we talked about Milton earlier. I don't know if Trey Lance is at the level where I think, oh, he's eventually going to get another job again. But I think Trey Lance has kind of found himself a spot in the league overall, but not much to gain from this game. Jets, Steelers, Klubnik, like I said, I didn't think he played that great. I mean, 10 for 14 for 75. Like, the counting stats are fine. I just personally didn't love it. We saw Drew Aller and Will Howard go head-to-head again for Pittsburgh. I just think Drew Aller is like a mile better. And the Jets defense was actually playing really nice in this game. And you got to think, like, if you're a Jets fan, especially if you're Aaron Glenn, like coaching for your life, the defense looking better, even though it's just the preseason, still gives you some kind of hope there. But I think Aller is just better than Will Howard. Will Howard with the 2 picks. One of them was kind of more on the receiver, if we're being honest, on that crossing route. He kind of faded up when he could have just made a play to get the ball. So tough to see there. But Drew Aller had a really nasty pass on the run, sideline throw. I mean, it seriously looked like prime Aaron Rodgers just on that one play. But overall, not too much to take away from this game either. Roman Wilson, I think, is just bad. He was the receiver that faded out on that crossing route. So if you were a believer in Roman Wilson, I wouldn't be. But overall, nothing too crazy there. Panthers, Jags. We saw Bryce Young and the starters play, I believe, multiple drives. And the vibe that I got was Bryce Young and Tedero McMillan. That connection is still there. 2 for 25 in this game. But Bryce Young was targeting him pretty heavily. Jonathan Brooks appears to be, when Chuba Hubbard's not around, just like an absolute workhorse back. I didn't love what I saw, but Jonathan Brooks gets his first ever unofficial touchdown in this game. So that was really solid for him. I do kind of worry a little bit about the Panthers offense as a whole. I'm actually going to be talking about the Panthers in a video that I think will drop tomorrow more extensively, but they're a team that I'm just having a hard time figuring out where I stand with them, because the offense feels very hit or miss, and I do love the defense, but a lot of people expect them to take a step forward this year, and I'm not sure I'm all the way there. The Jags didn't play any of their starters again. That Trevor Pena, though, he's had back-to-back really good games, rookie receiver for them, so that could be something to note if you are a Jags fan. They have actually a pretty deep receiving core this year. I saw reports that Travis Hunter is kind of shifting now full-time to corner pretty much because they kind of need him to be their lockdown CB1, so I think that that's the right move. Packers, Broncos, the Packers won 33-13. We did get to see actually like extensive play from both starting units in this game. I thought Jordan Love and Bo Nix both looked sharp. You could see both guys with a passer rating over 129 here. Jordan Love looked solid. He was distributing a ton. Christian Watson was involved. Matthew Golden was involved. Marshawn Lloyd had a receiving touchdown in this game on a nice little Texas route, so that was solid to see. For the Broncos, I think that this Bo Nix, Jalen Waddle connection, they had one catch for 35 yards. If Bo Nix had thrown just a little bit better of a ball, it probably would have been a 60-yard touchdown if I'm being completely honest. RJ Harvey had a receiving touchdown, though, so I think his role as a receiving back is only going to continue to grow. I'm still kind of a Jonah Coleman fan. They didn't give him a lot of workload in this game because I think Sean Payton's also a Jonah Coleman fan, but it was nice to see, man. For a couple of drives there, this felt like a legit, like, high-level NFL game, and you were like, oh, yeah, there's a real difference. There is a real difference. Lions, Commanders. This Commanders team, I think that they're in big freaking trouble, man. Big trouble. They could have been one of the teams that we talked extensively about. I just don't know how much I really have to say other than their offensive line sucks, man. Their offensive line is bad. Jaden Daniels and the offense were going to play one series, and the plays on that series, I believe, were run for minimal gain. Daniels gets pressured immediately, gets the ball away. Daniels gets pressured immediately, gets sacked. And I thought, 3 and out, they're going to send those guys out there again because they announced they're playing Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, and it's like you got no connection together on that drive. So like they're going to play another drive, and they didn't. And it was Detroit's backups. Detroit's backups against the starters for Washington were getting constant pressure. And I know Tunsil's hurt, and he'll be back at some point. But Jaden Daniels, I think if he's injury prone, should be very terrified behind that line. The Lions, they didn't play anybody of note. I thought Dobbs looked okay. The pick that he had was just terrible processing. So, hopefully Jared Goff stays healthy for the Lions. Falcons, Colts, 34-6. Atlanta wins there. A lot of backup action. Cooper Rush actually looked pretty solid. The one incompletion that he had was pretty bad, but other than that, he looked solid. I think that Atlanta's rushing offense is going to be top notch again, and not like just because of Bijan, but I thought the blocking was really good. That Tyler Goodson had some motion. I think Cooper Rush, man, Bill Simmons launched this take, and I think it's possible that he ends up playing the most games of any Falcons quarterback this year, just in terms of his ability to stay healthy and actually be decent. Um, Nothing really of note for either of these teams, though. I think Riley Leonard's probably the clear backup over Anthony Richardson, so I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Richardson get traded to, a team that doesn't have a clear backup to try and get a development project, or maybe he goes to the Rams and just spends a year with McVay. Who knows? I mean, it worked for Baker. Speaking of the Rams beat the Saints 34 to nothing. Even in the preseason, this Rams team is just disgusting. Ty Simpson, we didn't see a ton from him. When it was his half, the Rams got a 100-yard pick six, so like that didn't help us see him a ton. Stenson Bennett looked really, really nice though, so it feels like the Rams are another one of those teams where they got a couple options at backup quarterback. Zach Wilson had a disaster interception in this game. What else? We got CJ Daniels, 8 for 68. One of those sleeper receivers that the Rams drafted a little bit later. I think that could be something, but overall, mostly just backups in this contest. Giants, Dolphins, same deal here. A lot of backups in this particular game. Jameis is always a fun watch. Singletary, he was playing. He had the touchdown. Tyrone Tracy fumbled near the goal line, so something of note there. Najee didn't play in this game, but I think Najee could surpass him as the legit backup on this team. It's just nothing of note too much in this game. Patriots, Eagles. I think, obviously as an Eagles fan, I was watching this game a little closer. Tanner McKee over Andy Dalton, I think, should be the move for them. I also want to say, I think the Eagles have a couple gems on this team. Willie Lampkin, Markel Bell are offensive linemen of the future for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Jeremiah Trotter is a name that people should start knowing. AJ Epinesa, I don't really know how Philly got him, because I feel like he could be a starting defensive end somewhere. But yeah, and then for the Patriots, Kyle Williams, I feel so bad for him being buried on that depth chart. I was actually talking to my buddy about it. I think a team that needs receiver depth should try and trade for Matt Collins. If you're the Patriots, I feel you look at A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, Pop Douglas, like those are your main three guys. And then you have a Kayshon Boutte as a 4, a Matt Collins as a 5, and Kyle Williams as a 6. Not that having, and then you have Efton Chisholm, who they believe in. Not that like you can't have depth at the wide receiver spot, but talents like Williams and Bodie being buried on a depth chart. It feels like either like flip those guys for some value, or I don't know, maybe I'm talking out my ass, but that's just what I would do. Bengals, Bears, we actually did get to see some starting reps from the Bears. To be honest, it didn't look very good. Caleb did hit a Dunze on a nice play action route, but it looked a little sloppy. I'm not going to lie, from the Chicago Bears. I'm not saying that I'm worried, like it's just a little bit of a preseason game, but what we saw from the starters when Caleb was out there, it was just a little too sloppy for my liking. Bengals went with all backups, so nothing too crazy of note that I took away from this game. Colby Young had a touchdown. He's a big body receiver. I think like if T. Higgins ever got hurt, he'd probably be the guy that fills that role, but nothing crazy. Buccaneers and Chiefs. Bucks win 16-15. No Mahomes again. I'm interested to see if we see Mahomes in the third preseason game, because Andy Reid does like to play starters. Jake Browning, I think they got to go with Jalen Daniels as the backup of this team. I think he's just much more dynamic, and I talked about this last week, but if the situation with Baker doesn't work out, I could see Daniels getting some run as the starter for Tampa next year, just because he is like a dynamic player. Like he had 7 rushing attempts in this game, obviously only 19 yards. He threw for a touchdown, had the best passer rating on the team. We did see some starting reps, I think like one drive from the Buccaneers offense, and it was fine. It wasn't anything too crazy. For Kansas City, Nussmeier and Fields, they're, I think, competing for the backup job, but I think it's probably just more so Fields. Emmett Johnson gets in the end zone again. Brashad Smith looked decent. Cyrus Allen, they're trying to get him the ball. You can clearly tell, but I'm interested to see his role in the full-time offense. And then we get to the last game, where I actually do think some things mattered in this, because we saw the Titans play their starters for an entire first quarter, and then like a little bit of a drive into the second, and they just got demolished by the Seattle Seahawks backup defense. And I'm not saying Cam Ward's a bust, because like that'd be asinine and way too soon to say, but I think it's fair to be worried about the Titans offense as a whole. Like they struggle, and again, Mike McDonald and the Seahawks are like, they're like, it's a sicko unit for sure, but it was backups out there. And the fact that Tennessee, with their starting offense, like it was Tony Pollard, it was Carnell Tate, it was Gunnar Helm, it was Cam Ward, it was Wan'Dale Robinson. Like the fact that this team could not move the ball against the backups of Seattle has to concern you if you're a Titans fan, because this offense does not look promising. Like obviously you box score watch and it's like 8 for 12, 81 passer rating, like that looks good. They did not look good. Don't let that fool you. Like the Titans offense looked bad in the game when the starters were playing. Pollard had a nice catch on a wheel route, but like that's most of their production came on one wheel route from a running back. And then Seattle's backups were moving the ball against the Titans starting defense. Like they put up 16 points in the first quarter. Drew Lock finds Arroyo for a deep touchdown. So Seattle still looks like a legit team, even with backups, but Tennessee with their starters still looked pretty bad. So if you were a guy that was like buying stock on the Titans and you were like, the Titans are about to surprise the league this year, you still got time to retract that take, my man. You could pull that back, and I would. So that's the end of the preseason week 2 coverage on the channel. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. It really helps out the channel. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.